Alright, YouTube, welcome back, and today we have the biggest fight of the year and quite possibly the biggest UFC fight of all time as Conor McGregor takes on Khabib Nurmagomedov for the UFC lightweight title. Today we're going to talk about 3 reasons why I think Conor McGregor will walk away from that fight the winner and a 2-time UFC lightweight champion. Reason number 1, he has really good distance control. Conor, everyone knows about his left hand and his ability to KO people early. They know about the trash talk. They know about the knockouts. What's a little bit underrated is his ability to control the distance. He has really long, almost and snappy-like front kicks and really long side kicks that help keep his opponents at bay, or if he wants to close the distance, it lets him gauge where they're at. He also has a really wide stance. It's very karate-like, which is kind of weird to see for a guy who's so heavy on his hands. It's very bladed too. He doesn't square up to his opponents at all. And he has really broad shoulders for these weight classes. When you look at him next to even guys like Eddie Alvarez, who's a big 155er, Conor looks like he has wings in comparison. Like when he squared off with Chad Mendes, I couldn't even see Chad Mendes. He uses his arms and his hands a lot to gauge distance as well. He reaches out, kind of paws with his left hand, kind of baits you to charge into it almost. Then he reloads it and fires it. We saw it especially a lot against Eddie, where a lot of guys like to kind of probe around with their lead hand, kind of just stick it out there, put it in their face, see where they're at. He did it with his left hand a lot, which kind of baited Eddie to charge in a little bit more than I think he wanted to. I don't think it'll play as big of a part in this fight, because I think Khabib's a little more just head forward. I don't think he's going to stay on the outside as much. But I think this could help Conor figure out Khabib's timing as he's charging in, especially early in the fight. Number 2 is underrated ground defense. Everyone remembers Nate. All people want to talk about this ground game is the fact that he has 3 submission losses, including a recent one to Nate Diaz. But what they don't really look at is his ground defense is surprisingly pretty good. We saw it against Chad Mendes a lot, especially because that's the only fight he's really been on the ground. Yet he uses a lot of squeezing his legs around his opponent's hips to control their posture so they can't lean up and rain down big shots. They have to throw short little elbows, and he knows he can handle a lot of those shots. They're not pretty, they're not fun to take, but it's better than getting teed off on. And speaking of getting teed off on, one thing that's really telling about Conor and how tough he really is, he is not afraid to take a few shots to get back up. We see against Chad Mendes, especially right here in this clip, he would just kind of start to stand up and he'd be willing to eat a few shots. He's not going to just kind of sit there and wait for the perfect opportunity. As soon as he finds an opening, he just goes for it. He's willing to basically take 1 or 2 to get back to his feet, where he knows he'll land 3 or 4 more than his opponent. He also does a really good job moving with the shots. We hear about that in the stand-up a lot, where they roll with the punches, that sort of thing. He does that pretty well on the ground too. Like when someone throws a punch, if he's not able to corral them, he turns with it, which is impressive to do, especially off of your back, because it's not always easy to do that. Your head can only go so many places. Basically, he does a really good job of avoiding bouncing his own head off the canvas, like what he says he likes to do. And he actually does have pretty effectively good submission defense. Against Nate, he was clearly dead tired and a little hurt. That 1-2 that Nate landed while Conor's jaw was wide open and Nate threw the perfect punches, Conor was leaning in for that uppercut. And I think that just did a lot more damage to him than he'll ever admit. Plus, I think he was also a little exhausted. Once the cardio tank starts to go, you're pretty much useless in there. It's the worst thing that could happen to any fighter. But against Chad, when Chad went for that submission, he had a very difficult way to roll out of it. Most of the time, you're taught tuck your chin into their ribs and break the hands. He actually rolled with it and went the opposite way. That's not very easy submission. That's not really low-level grappling. That's some high-level grappling. So he does have the ability to defend a lot of submissions as long as he has his gas tank about him. And number 3, and probably one of the most important ones, he is fearless in the pocket. When Khabib's going to rush him, as soon as I don't know if it's going to be right away or if he's going to wait a little bit, but Khabib's going to bum rush him. That's just what he does. And that's going to be where the fight is basically decided. If Conor stands in there and is willing to deliver his shot like he has against everybody else, I think he takes him out. Even if he has to take a shot, like he'll take 2-3 shots if he has to deliver that one big shot. We saw it was in the Jose Aldo Vine. He basically stood right there. We see Jose sprint at him, one of the scariest, most devastating fighters of all time, the best in the lower weight classes, arguably, we've ever seen, is sprinting at him. He stands in there, delivers his shot, doesn't throw a whole lot of power into it, just bangs it in off Jose's chin, and gets the fastest KO in UFC title fight history. I don't think Khabib's going to scare him when he comes in. Khabib's not as terrifying on the feet. He's going to come in, he's going to rush in there. I think Khabib's going to basically have his chin straight up and run in trying to throw a few shots to crowd Conor and then get into a grappling situation. And Conor is, for all the talk and all of the brash bravado, he's quite possibly one of the best counter-strikers we've ever seen in the UFC. His ability to stand in there and bang that left hand against much, much more talented strikers when they come in. I think Khabib's in a lot of trouble if he runs in similar to that. I'm a big fan of Khabib. I'm a big fan of Conor. But I think this fight has a lot of signs point to Conor just banging that left hand probably in the early second round. I think first round he'll hurt Khabib, but I think Khabib will be able to tie him up and bring him down. Well, that's all I have for this prediction video. Next, we're going to actually look at 3 reasons why Khabib will win this fight as well. All right, thanks for tuning in, and if you like the content, feel free to subscribe or follow me on Twitter. I like to tweet during the fights as well, and sometimes I like to think I'm a little funny. All right, thanks for tuning in. Bye.